Very good morning to you all. My dear students, I hope you're all doing home with safe. And today we are going to start with the next chapter, a very important chapter, which is called as the Stone Age and Metal Ages. Well, from this topic, there are a lot of questions related to 1 mark and 2 mark. There is no lengthy questions like essay kind of a questions from this topic. So it's a very brief topic that you are going to study. Well, regarding the important factor called as Stone Age and Metal Age, this could be considered as prehistoric period. This is considered as a prehistoric period. Reason is very simple. We don't find any of the written records. In the last class, while I was explaining about the sources, I made a mention why it was regarded as a prehistoric period and historic period. Reason is this one. Here during this period, there was no records or written records. So, what are these prehistoric period is all about? As you all know, we are all aware that man had been wandering, or he was living in this earth for many centuries. From time immemorial, he had been living, maybe 1 lakh years ago. He had been living in this earth, in the planet Earth. And as a matter of fact, his living and his living conditions, how he prevailed during the prehistoric period, it's all about the Stone Ages. Well, another important question which arises at this juncture is that what were the origin of the places and origin of the date? These are 2 important questions that arises. The origin of the places, origin of the date. No historians could give us a proper or a thorough answer on the exact location or on the exact origin. It is all based on the dating system that the historians have arrived at a few dates and few regions. We are talking about the history of India. So naturally, there are few places where it is believed that these primitive men might have lived. Say for example, Shivalik Hills in Himalaya. Shivalik Hills near Himalayan mountains is believed that the first group of people might have existed. This is one theory which is provided by the historians. But the other group of historians, they vary from their opinion, and though they are their claim is that maybe the first group of inhabitants would be in a place called as Dandakaranya in the Karnataka region of Deccan. So this theory is widely accepted. So probably this would be the first inhabitants settled in the Deccan part. Of course, in the last year you had studied about the evolution of man and also the process of what and all features that made him to be a primitive man and his developments. We are not going to touch about those reasons, but these things are very much important from Indian history point of view. So apart from all these things, there are many other different races in India which had inhabited. And due to their inhabitants and different kind of races, it again has created little bit of confusion. You know why? The reasons are there were different kinds of races. Which are those races? Let's examine that part first. Number 1, Negroid race. Alpine, Mongolian. You understand? Of course, they were Dravidians. So regarding these four races that had existed in India, the historians have been in a confusion which group of people were the true inhabitants of this land. These are the different races that had existed in India, and man had been walking around on this planet for almost probably 1,500,000 years ago. And widely accepted theory is that he had presumably originated in Deccan part of India. If these are the races, there are again some of the other important factors related to this prehistoric period. As a prehistoric period is classified into 6 divisions. What are they? Number 1, Paleolithic age, Mesolithic age, and Neolithic age. Of course, these are the stone ages. So today's class, we are going to discuss about these 3 stone ages. Another 3 ages are like the metal ages that we can continue later. So as I was explaining about this one, let me now start with the first one, which we are dealing is Paleolithic period or age. What is Paleolithic age? A question arises. What were the first stage of prehistoric period? Let's examine the first part, and that was Paleolithic period. And before I start with that, let me just say a few words about the British archaeologists. In the mid of 19th century, Robert Bruce Foote, an archaeologist who was from a geological survey of India, who had been deputed in India, near Madras, he founded a stone implement. So out of the stone implement that he explored, it belonged to the Stone Ages, and that happened to be an hand axe, which was used by the primitive people in times immemorial. So this created a lot of questions, and excavational part had taken up in a grand scale. And one more thing, let me make it clear here. Till then, there was no archaeological survey of India that was established. How and who was the first director and other things we will discuss later part. But he belonged, or this Robert Bruce Foote belonged to the geological survey of India, and he came across with the hand axe. Now regarding the first attributes about the Stone Age, now let's get back into this part. As I made a mention, Paleolithic age, or among the Stone Ages, this is regarded as the ancient or the earliest period. According to the historians or the archaeologists, based on the dating methods and other details, the date is approximately fixed between 40,000 to 10,000 BCE. They claim that these Paleolithic period might have existed between 40,000 to 10,000 BCE. Now, what do you mean by Paleolithic? It has come out from 2 Greek words, paleo, which means old, whereas lithic means stone age. So put together, it is considered as a Paleolithic period. I am repeating that. These Paleolithic has derived from the Greek words paleo, which means old, lithic, which means stone age. So put together, it is called as Paleolithic. This question is there for your 1 mark and 2 mark point. All right. Now, what was a stone that was available, and what was a stone and how did they use it? That's an important factor. They used the quartzite stones. They used the quartzite stone, which was very strong. which was very much strong. And that's the reason, with the use of these quartzite stones in a large scale, these people were also called as quartzite men. They were also called as quartzite men. Now regarding these parts, as you have seen here, what are these parts? I've just drawn approximate kind of a tool implements that were used by the Paleolithic people. Say for example, out of this quartzite, they converted these stone implements like weapons. So as a matter of fact, each implement was used for a different purpose. As you can see here, this was considered as a chopping tool. This part, in fact, taking up a huge stone, they chipped out some of the top layer, which was called as the flake. That part which was removed came to be called as the flake, and this particular region came to be called as the core. So out of this core, they managed to make it as a chopping tool, which was used for chopping purpose. Same thing happened here. To cut down, to tear something, they made or they converted the stone into cleaver. As you can see here, this kind of flakes that were removed was to take a grip to hold it, so they can devour or to tear apart. So as you know, metal was not known to them, and of course animals, wild animals, for their food purpose, they used to hunt down and tear open its skin. So it required very strong stones. Another thing was the hand axes. So here, as a matter of fact, it was made into a holding part to get a grip in the hand. So for like that way, they made these kind of a hand axes. This is another view, how it appeared from a side view. Then there was again another important factor called as choppers. As you can see, the sharp edges, and here probably they would have held it like this to smash or to break something. So these were the stone tools that were used by the Paleolithic people. As another important factor is to be made, it was rough, it was undressed stones. They used the rough and the undressed stones. So related to this, what happened was, these people in their appearance were very much muscular. They were very much strong enough. And of course, they lived near the rivers, not into the deep jungles, because that was always a threat for them. It was always a threat for them due to the wild animals. So usually they stayed near the riverside for different other purpose. During this stage of Paleolithic, they did not have a knowledge of the fire. They did not have a knowledge of agriculture. It was an early primitive kind of a man who lived in this era. So naturally, he was a hunter. He did not know the quality of food gathering. He led a life of a nomadic or maybe like a wanderer, and went in search of food. So this was actually the first stage. I hope I'm clear with you. These were the stone tools which were used, and the name of the stone was quartzite. It was called as a quartzite, and henceforth they were called as a quartzite men. I was just explaining about the Paleolithic period and also about some of the food habits and how the life of primitive men in Paleolithic period had existed. Of course, he hunted the animals, he killed the wild beast for his survival. It could be in the defensive part or even for his survival. Not only that, the bones of the animal were also used as the tools. Some of the hard bones where this quartzite stone was, or the stone implement was tied to it. So based on that, he used it as a weapon. Of course, he had no knowledge about the fire, nor about the pottery or agriculture. So indeed, his life was like of a nomad. And in India, there are many number of important sites. You understand? There are many number of important sites in various regions of our own country. Say for example, and this question is there for your 2 mark. Coming to this one, number 1, the Sohan River Basin, which is in the present Pakistan. The Sohan river basin is at Pakistan region. Narmada river basin, Tungabhadra, of course, it's in Karnataka. Bhopal and Chota Nagpur, areas of Madhya Pradesh. Then Tirunelveli in Tamil Nadu, Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh, Balan Caves, UP, Lingasugar in Raichur of Karnataka, and finally Ghataprabha, Belgaum, Karnataka itself. There are still many more. From your exam point of view, these are few important points. 2 more questions, very well you can expect. Among the stone ages, this is very much important. Alright, so another important factor that we go ahead is another second stage. But before that, I just thought of adding up one more point here. In the year 1983, around few British archaeologists visited Pakistan, and on the Jhelum river basin, they discovered 3 hand axes. 3 hand axes were discovered. So that was again a glimpse to know about the Paleolithic period, as excavation was conducted few years back. Unfortunately, according to certain historians and archaeologists, they say that the tools, some of the tools have become totally extinct. In this way, this is all about Paleolithic period. Let's move with another important age. The second one is about Mesolithic period or Mesolithic age. According to the historians as well as the archaeologists, they have suggested a commonly accepted date is approximately between 10,000 to 8,000 BCE. And now this stage, and what are the significance of this stage? That's more important to discuss about. Well, Mesolithic age, it's again derived from the Greek words Meso, which means middle, Lithic, once again the Stone Age. Put together, it is called as Mesolithic period. Now the beauty about this period is actually it is an intertwining, or it is a transitional age. Paleolithic witnessed he was totally not so developed, but in this stage there were a lot of changes that he had underwent. As a matter of fact, as you can see here, the tools which have already made it mention. Now he started making the tools which were small in its size. Precisely, the precision was given. Now the stone tools were polished. The surface of the stones, the surface of these chopping stones or cleavers or hand axe or chopper, whatever it was all made into a polished one so that it could not hurt his hands or palms. So like that way, he again held on the holes into it so that he could tie it around his waist or maybe to his wrist. Look at the shapes. Under these stages, he also started giving a different shapes. So as I've already told you, it's a transitional age. It's a transitional age between Paleo and Neolithic. This stage had witnessed a lot of developments. Going further, in this Mesolithic period, he witnessed or he started leading a life of a hunting. He started hunting as another important factor, which already we saw it in the first stage. Second one, food gathering. He started to gather the food. And later, he learned the knack of fisheries. So he also became a fisherman. Apart from all these things, one significant thing that happened here in the Mesolithic period was the use of fire. So with the coming of the fire, with the invention of fire, started cooking the food, started making potteries. He learned the art of making the pots. So look at those conditions, look at the development of Mesolithic period. Learn the art of making pottery. And another important factor is that during the second stage of Mesolithic, or during this phases, he started burying the dead ones. So in other words, what happened is he started leading a life of a herdsman, started living with his group. That is the beauty about Mesolithic period. So these are some of the common factors that we have to understand under the Mesolithic period. So life started changing. Going across, these are once again the tools with some of the important features and other aspects. Some of the important sites in India where he had inhabited. From your exam point of view, 2 mark and 1 mark questions. As I've already noted here, please make a note on that part. Important sites: Ajmer in Rajasthan region, Sabarmati in Gujarat, Ahmednagar in Maharashtra region, Sanganakallu of Bellary district of Karnataka, Brahmagiri in Chitradurga at Karnataka. So these are important sites from your exam point of view. Paleolithic sites or Mesolithic or Neolithic question could be asked. So please make a track of all these names. Now if these things were the important sites, now as an important another thing that we can mention here is, as a Mesolithic gatherer leading a life of a herdsman, he started living in the caves. He started living in the caves. Not only that, in a place called as Bhimketka, whatever things that this Mesolithic men saw, he started painting it on the walls. If he had seen the sequence of hunting or animals or any other mode of that path or any kind of things that he saw or witnessed, he immediately brought it on the walls. So in the Bhimketka, you can find some of the paintings. Now you might be wondering, sir, in those era, were there any paint? How did he make any oil painting or something like that? There was no oil painting as such, but the coloring method was used out of the ashes and the blood. And of course, certain fruits or certain mixing of certain fruits were also made it into a liquid pastry kind, or he made it that itself as a oil canvassing kind and used it as for the purpose of paint. And what was a brush? Now that's an important question. What was the mode of brush that he introduced? He started cutting down the tails of certain animals. Squirrels, the tail created a role of a, or that became a role of a brush. Camel tail and few more other animals that became a brushes for him to paint on the walls. As you can see here, there are a few, we just tried our best. It's an animal that he saw, it's a wild boar, what he saw in the jungle, and he immediately brought it on the walls of the Bhimketka. And on the other side, you can see that a man going for a hunting. If you look at the hands, there is a bow and an arrow. It's a sincere effort to make it clear for you. So he started making or this one is actually an indication of a hunter. And not only that part, that is hunting and dancing and singing and all the other things were common during in the herdsmen. So all those things are brought in picture. Not only that, as you can see here, the dancing. This is actually the men and women dancing together in the group between their herd. So even that part was brought in the canvas. So these are the beauty about Mesolithic period. Next is another important stage, and the final stone age is Neolithic. The last stage of the stone ages are Neolithic age. Approximately the date has been fixed between 8000 to 4000 BCE. The dates do differ as per the archaeologists and their opinion, but yet commonly accepted is this one. So what is the word or what is the meaning of the word Neolithic? Once again, it has derived from the Greek words. 1 mark question. Neo, which means new, lithic, which means stone age. As well put together, it is called as Neolithic age. Now, some of the significant things about the Neolithic people are that Paleolithic was an early stage where man had not developed himself, and the second stage was a transitional period where he had a lot of changes that had occurred in him, and the third stage, as you can see here, he had progressed. There was a wonderful progress in his appearance as well as in his behavior and also in his lifestyle. Now, what is so common about the Neolithic period is that started living on the lakes nearby the sea. His inhabitant was nearly towards a lake and towards the sea. So it provided a basement for fishing, as well he could travel across. So in that way he started inhabiting on these regions. Not only that part, now coming to the weapons part, as I've already told you, these people made use of the quartzite stone, which was very much strong in itself. So once again, the same kind of stone was used in the times of Neolithic period. Now the changes that you can see in the weapons are like these stones were chipped out. The edges were chipped, it was grounded, you understand? Not only that, it was grooved and it was well polished. So in this stage, he did not want to affect or harm his hands. So as you can see here, the weapons were made in a more delicate or maybe like a more hard and in a precision mode, so that it could serve his purpose of killing the animals. And not only killing of animals, different kind of weapons were used for different forms. Today in our kitchen we do have different varieties of knife. One is to cut the vegetables and the other one may be like to use it for cutting out the non-vegetarians. So different kind of knives are used for different purpose. But those era, these stone weapons were used for various purpose. Coming to another important factor is his livelihood. And at this stages, he started staying at one particular places. So when he started living on living together with the groups at one places, he learned the art of cultivation. Not only he started the art of cultivation, but at the same time he started domesticating animals. Animals were also domesticated here. Say for example, cow, sheep, goat, etc. He domesticated these animals so that he can milk from these things. Apart from that, his life was in the caves. So, as a matter of fact, he decorated the walls with the paintings. As I've already made a mention, like example was like Bhimketka. So here also, whatever things that he saw, maybe the dancing, maybe the song, maybe the hunting sequence, all those things were brought in the pictures, in mode of pictures on the walls through the paintings. If these were some of the attributes, furthermore, you can see that he started bringing up number of potteries. Archaeologists have excavated various kind of potteries having different kinds of designs. So it's a humble effort of bringing it more clearer for you. The pieces of broken pot were discovered and probably it would have appeared like this. You understand? It would have probably appeared in this way, the designs and other stuff. So it is only to make you understand, like these kind of potteries were made in the times of Neolithic period. See, I have to say one more thing. From the Neolithic period, next was the metal ages. But once again, the life of the people started changing because it made way for the civilization. He started living like a civilized human being. So from here, you can see that wonderful changes happening. So for that sake, potteries were made. Look at the development. He started making boat so that he can sail on the sea. Apart from that, dressing mode. Now he came across with the art of weaving, and material that was used was like wool and cotton. During the Paleolithic period, clothing I never mentioned, because sometimes he would have felt cold, or maybe the skin of the animal was used to protect himself from the cold. So that process once again had existed even in the times of Mesolithic. But here woolen products or cottons were used for the weaving. One more significant thing is cloth dyeing, the coloring. That particular part was also brought in this stage. Wonderful development, isn't it? The food that he consumed was the fruits, vegetables, the roots, animal flesh, fish, milk products. All these things were consumed by the people in the times of Neolithic period. Apart from that, he learnt the art of cooking. See, during the time of Mesolithic, he introduced, or the invention of fire was a significant development. So with the knowledge of fire, he started preparing the food in a cooked terms. So his lifestyle also changed over this stage because he started wearing ornaments. He or she started wearing the ornaments such as beads, rings, bangles, armlets, maybe from the bones or the stones that were made in terms of beads or something like a jewelry they wore. There was no knowledge of the gold or any other metals. Please let me remind you that. So stones and bones probably made as a jewelry. And there is one group of historians and archaeologists saying that different geographical features had made them to follow different lifestyle. Due to the different geographical factors, they learned the different lifestyles at different places. So it can vary. Considerably, it was not the one and the same. It varied entirely different way. Now, another important factor that I can mention here is worshipping. So God was unknown to them. So naturally what was common was they started worshipping their ancestors. There was again worshipping of spirit. This feature existed now. They started burying, funeral was given, burning, or funeral was given to the dead ones. During the Mesolithic period, the dead ones probably were buried. There was no knowledge of the funeral, but in the Paleolithic period, they just left away the dead bodies, maybe to the animals or maybe due to, maybe for more days it would have decayed. But here, they started burning the dead ones through the funeral, and that ashes were preserved. The burial ground or something like a funeral part was made into an urn, as I already made a mention, and that was in an oval shape. So this is how they used to burn the bodies. Sometimes they used to bury the dead ones in a posture of seated posture with all the legs and hands tied up. Like this way, they used to make the burying part which existed in the Mesolithic and continued even in the times of Neolithic period. Sometimes in the Neolithic period, they also made the dead bodies to lie down. Funeral in both the ways they made. So it was in an oval shape. So preservation of ashes was another important factor in the pots that existed in the time of Neolithic period. Weapons, probably these were the weapons, and important thing is sacrifice. The knowledge of sacrifices also existed in the Neolithic period because animal and human sacrifices came into the minds of these people. So this is another important factor that we can mention here in the Neolithic lifestyle. These are the different weapons or stone tools that existed in the times of Neolithic period. Celt, it is called as a celt. Once again, the same quartzite stones were used, grooved and polished, and these are in appearance, it looks very much polished and the precision was really good intact. So this is what the important factors about the Neolithic period. The last one, the different sites. Number one, the important sites of Neolithic period are Maski and Raichur at Karnataka, then Ballari again in Karnataka region, Salem and Tirunelveli in, Tirunelveli in Tamil Nadu region. Next part is Hyderabad and Kurnool in Andhra Pradesh, Kathiawar in Gujarat, Sindh and Balochistan in modern Pakistan, and various other regions. So these are the Neolithic sites. So with this part, let's wind up the class for now. Next is about the age of metals, which I will continue in the next class. So any queries or anything, please send it through the email. The link is below the website. So go through that. Any doubts or any clarification, we'll have it. So let's wind up the class here. Stay home, stay safe, take care of your health. Thank you. Thank you so much.